Welcome everybody to this episode. See, I told you I always forget this shit. Episode 7. This is episode 7 of Sucio Talk. I'm hanging with Chef Erik Anderson. Thank you very much for being on the show. We're out here in quite a quaint little place in Calistoga. It's beautiful, nice gloomy weather around here, so it's a good day to chill out.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, good day to be indoors.
Hell yeah. So, here at Sucio Talk, we take it all the way back, right? So I know you're doing some things right now, but I'm curious to know where you came from and why you ended up where you are now. Okay.
Right.
So where are you from?
Originally, I grew up in Chicago, Illinois. Actually a town just west of Chicago called Downers Grove.
Okay.
Which is oddly enough home of Randy Macho Man Savage.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
One of my favorite wrestlers. Yeah. So, I love WWE.
Yeah. So grew up there until I was about 16. Moved to the city when I was 16 in the north side of Chicago.
Yeah.
Which is where I kind of spent my late teens and early 20s and stuff. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. And then what did your parents do?
So my father was. In the 60s, he was a sous chef at the Drake Hotel in Chicago, which is still around today.
Yeah.
When I was born, he stopped working there, and he was actually a firefighter and paramedic. And then my mother and him owned a diner while I was growing up. So, it's kind of funny for me. I think back in my dad how much he worked, because they worked, 24 hours on. And
basically,
2 days off.
Yeah.
And you sleep at the firehouse, and then on his 2 days off, he was working at the diner.
Yeah.
So it was like, I'm like, goddamn, like later in life, I thought about it. I'm like, I really barely ever had a day off.
Exactly.
Maybe a Sunday, because the diner was closed on Sundays,
Yeah.
So he did that. Cooking is, my dad's a fantastic cook, and, we kind of grew up with it. And, he was always cooking for the holidays.
Yeah.
And, I think out of, my brother and sister and me, I was really the only one that kind of gravitated toward it at a young age.
Yeah.
So, I kind of picked that up from him, really. And my mother was a great cook too, but, spent time working in the little diner called the Village Restaurant in North Aurora, Illinois. I think probably my first time working there was 10 or 11, just washing dishes. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he was running the kitchen and you're...
Yeah, I would say my mom ran the kitchen. He was gone too much, he would come in and he'd do, on his 2 days off. My mom was definitely the boss,
Okay.
To this day, too, one of the greatest line cooks I've ever seen. She was super fast.
Yeah.
She'd do everything on like a 3.5 foot plancha,
Just organized.
Just organized, super fast, and just mean as hell. It didn't. If you weren't working fast enough, she knew it. Yeah. It also led to some epic family fights too, between my mom and dad,
Yeah.
But it was, it was a great environment to grow up in. Part of me hated it at the time because it was Saturdays on my day off from school, and all my friends were playing, and I'm literally washing dishes or scum diving in a 3-compartment sink when I'm 11 or 12 years old, for a crisp $10 bill at the end of the shift, But
at least I made sure it was
crisp. But yeah, exactly. But later, I didn't appreciate it till later in life, and I was like, wow, that actually, you learn. My mom taught me, and my dad taught me, the value of hard work and, committing yourself to a job, no matter, what my mom would always say, if you agree to work for a dollar amount, that's on you then, and you got to work your hardest, and if you're not happy, that's your problem.
It's your fault. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a great mentality.
It is, yeah. She's like, no one's forcing you to be there.
Exactly.
So she just, from an early age, just instilled hard work on all of us, and I don't know why I was the only one of us three to really kind of gravitate towards that, but I have memories of, cooking with my dad. He would always cook New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, things like that. It was it was a big event when my dad was cooking.
Yeah. What kind of food were we talking about?
I mean, honestly, some kind of French, the Drake back then was very kind of classic French style, but there was always a little bit of everything. My mother is Mexican. My dad's Norwegian, So it was a weird mix of stuff on the holidays, Mexican food, and then potato sausage and limpa bread and scanned herring and stuff. So, it was an interesting time, but it was always fun. They'd always have their friends over, and it was, kind of a fun time of the year, the holidays around our house. So
that's awesome. Hell yeah. So you're growing up and everything like that, and then did you know you had a serious inkling towards cooking at that point, or were you just like, I'm just helping my family?
I'm just kind of saying, I liked it. I always knew I liked it, you know. But I didn't know, you know, I was a high school dropout. I didn't, you know, just partying a lot, just, you know, trying to earn money for, you know, beer money and buy a bag of weed and just, you know, whatever, you know. So didn't have a serious bone in my body then, you know.
It's a great motivator.
Yeah, it really is. So you
beer
know,
and weed, baby.
Exactly. Yeah. So I really wasn't serious about anything, you know, just hanging out with my friends and, you know, having enough cash to, you know, buy cigarettes and whatever, you know. So I think, you know, I had a few other fast food jobs in between there, you know, at a Ponderosa Steakhouse, which is I still tell stories about working there. It was just a kind of an incredible environment as like a 15-year-old. I think I was 15 when I started working there.
Who was working there at the time?
So it was all my high school buddies.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and there was two managers who worked there, and I'll never forget them. Their names were Steve Smoron and Don Ferry. And yeah, we used to just like, I don't know if you're familiar with the style of service at the Ponderosa Steakhouse. You walk in, you place your order, and you get a tray. It's kind of like tray service, but then they bring your food, your entree out to you, and there's a salad bar. But, you know, so the managers were just, it was just, every day it was like, which one of those two is going to be the laziest? You know, they didn't do a goddamn thing. And so we do stuff like, even at 15, it's like, you know, we were like little criminal minds. Like, you know, we'd steal beer and then like, you know, smoke weed in the alley, and then. But some days, like if you had to open, they had these big toe chains on the front door, and you had to unlock those to open the doors and stuff. Some days we just leave them on, and
just leave
they would be, why is no one coming in? They didn't even dawn on them once to just walk up and check and see if the door was open or stuff, you know. But they just sit in their office and they just were flabbergasted why no one was coming in the restaurant.
Wow.
So it's because we didn't take the toe chains off because we didn't want to work. Damn. And then we had one of those, you know, those black and white press boards with the white letters. And it'd say, "Welcome to Ponderosa. Your managers are Steve Smoron and Don Ferry." Yeah. And we'd obviously change their names around to probably say the obvious, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
And they would never check, you know. Just it was unbelievable. The first time, I remember we were like after work on a Friday, and we sold some beers, and we were sitting in this booth, and we're rolling a joint. And we're trying to be sly about it. It was me and my buddy Glenn Freitag and Rich Vogel and this kid Scott Mankey. We were rolling this joint, trying to be sly, and then all of a sudden Don, our manager, shows up. He's like, "What the fuck are you guys doing?" And we're like, "Oh shit!" Like, "Well, we're rolling a joint, Don." He's like, "Give me that. That's not how you roll a joint." And there's like a 40-year-old man like sitting down with 16-year-old kids, like showing us how to roll like a proper joint. I don't know. It was a fun time, you know. Like, hey, I literally think my friend Glenn met his wife there, and they're still married to this day. Which is it's pretty crazy. But
fast food love, baby.
Yeah, total fast food love.
I learned how to fucking roll blunts at KFC. So you know. I
think those jobs are important, you know, and it also teaches you volume too.
Yeah,
like, you just get crushed, you know. But it was
you bask in that too.
Oh yeah,
when you're getting crushed and you're that age, you're like, whatever.
And the meat cook was this guy Charles. I can't believe I remember these people's names. At a certain point we'd have to. He was on work release, so we'd have to go in the mornings and pick him up from the county jail, and like he'd work his shift and then bring back. You know, he's on the day program work release. But,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a good job. And then, you know, I'm trying to like, you know, I kind of forgot a part of this. When I was, after I dropped out of high school, obviously no direction. My dad is, like I said, he was a firefighter, paramedic. Mm-hmm. He's like, "Hey, I'll give you a choice of what you want to do, and I'll pay for it. You can either go to the CIA for cooking, or you can go to paramedic school." So I chose going to paramedic school, actually. So I did that for a short time. Yeah. For a couple years, actually. And then, you know, I was living in the city, and I started working for extra money at this club called the Metro, which is kind of like it's one of the coolest, it's like an 1,100 capacity concert venue, you know, and it had a bar in the basement. And so I started working there. A buddy of mine, my brother had always been in bands, and he got me into music. And one of the singers of his bands worked there, and we got to be buddies. And he, like, you know, asked me if I needed a job for extra money. So I'm like, sure, you know. And once you get immersed in that kind of a lifestyle, it's real difficult to go back to a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
You're working, and music is, I've always loved it. And, so you're loading in shows, you're like watching free shows, you're getting paid for it. There's just, drugs and booze everywhere. So it was like, you're 20 years old, 21 years old, and you're like, whoa, this is the funnest thing.
It's the best thing.
Ever.
Yeah,
ever.
for sure.
And then I get the owner of the club. I worked there a lot. I mean, I would work every show, and I was like, I'll work. And it was hard. It was like the main dance floor was on the second level, so you had to go 2 flights of stairs, lugging up amps, some like full PA stuff. But I just saw some amazing shows. Like Bob Dylan did 3 nights there. I saw Iggy Pop there. I saw like the Pumpkins. And during that time, it was like the Chicago music scene was like this Smashing Pumpkins and Ministry and Jesus Lizard and all these just amazing cool bands. But so I got to see a lot of that stuff, and like Foo Fighters did their first show, when they did their first van tour they did there, who else, when the club opened, REM was the first band that they ever had play there. It'd been open since the late 80, I think 1980 it opened, but so I got to be buddies with the owner, and he started Joe Shanahan was his name, who we're still friends to this day, but he started managing a band called the Smoking Popes, and they had just signed a record deal to Capitol.
Okay.
And so he owned the club. Started managing bands, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to? I have a tour booked with these guys. They were opening up for the Goo Goo Dolls."
Okay.
And this was like the summer before the Goo Goo Dolls got big.
You're talking about City of Angels? Goo Goo Dolls?
No, it's maybe. I barely.
They sang the song for the movie.
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh, did they? Okay, shit. Yeah, those guys. Yeah.
those
we used to call them the Doo-Doo Dolls.
Before then, they were like super, like,
a
little bit more, at least,
they were
aggressive.
Different. Oh, yeah, exactly. And this was like the summer, the end of the summer, they got big with that one. They had this huge smash hit, but they were still like, not really, So he's like, "Hey, do you want to road manage this band?" I'm like, "Sure." And he's like, "Well, have you ever done this?" I'm like, "I lied." I'm like, "Yeah, of course." No big deal. And my buddy Gooch, who was my roommate at the time's older brother, road managed the Smashing Pumpkins. And Gooch kind of like, I called him and I'm like, "Hey,
what do I do?"
Yeah, and he filled me in. And again, me and Gooch are still friends this day too. He's he road manages Depeche Mode and Neil Young, and he road manages
to this day.
Oh yeah, to this day. He did about 10 years working for Kiss too, and
what the fuck?
so we still talk quite a bit. And
that's very cool.
It's crazy that you meet the most amazing people, but
yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, I'll do it, and so I spent a few years working with the Popes. They had some success, a couple soundtrack things, and we did a couple tours. We did the last Jawbreaker tour, which was kind of cool. Open up for those guys, and then I just kind of started working for bands, like road managing bands. And
what does the road manager do?
So basically, you answer the band's manager, but you're on the road with the band, making sure that they're making it to the interviews, making it to sound check, making sure that the production is all set up, and the shows are advanced. So before you actually go to a town to play a show, you have to advance it with the promoter. So you have to call them, a couple weeks out and start saying, okay, this is the production needs, this is the lighting needs, this is, what we need for money, and all the contracts are done, but you try not to take a lot of cash with you. So, you'd be like, okay, I'll take this percentage and check, and I'll need this much for cash because I have to pay my bus drivers and truck drivers. It's a lot of it's accounting.
So you're just managing money. Got you.
A lot of it is, managing.
All while
managing
you have these
money.
Crazy artists being
yeah,
like,
oh yeah,
let's party, man.
Exactly. So then I was working with this guy Jeff Castellez, who now I think he manages the Dropkick Murphys now, and I was living in Milwaukee, and I wanted to start touring less and managing, just day-to-day management stuff. So I was buddies with the guy in the Alkaline Trio, all the guys there, and we just started talking about that. So I started managing Alkaline Trio, and there wasn't a ton of money at the beginning, so I had to manage and do all the road work too.
Yeah.
So it was fun. It's been weird because I don't normally talk about this a lot, because when I started cooking seriously, I just never I wanted to like be known more for cooking than for like being a former rock person,
right,
and
yeah,
tattoo. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
so I barely would ever talk about this, but now I'm like, it's part of my life, and I'm comfortable with it. And it was a great experience. I met incredible people, and got to tour the world in Japan and Europe, and I think I've been to every state except Alaska and Hawaii.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was a fun experience, but ultimately, it wasn't what I wanted to do. It was like 7 days a week babysitting.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like, I need cold medicine. It's like, do you know how to go to the fucking store and get your own cold medicine? Shit like that. So I stopped doing it, really. And
you just go back home for a little bit.
I kind of I had this girlfriend at the time who lived in Minneapolis, and we started getting serious, and so I left Chicago and moved to Minneapolis when I just quit and moved to Minneapolis to be with this woman, and then I'm like, I want to start cooking again. And I guess I should go back, because towards the end of my touring and working, I would spend more time in the back of the bus, like reading cookbooks. Like, I bought the French Laundry cookbook while I was on the road with bands, and I would, like probably a Borders or Barnes and Noble or something, and I would read that in the back of the bus. Like, everyone would be playing PlayStation or, partying. I just like literally buying cookbooks, like, the Trotter books, the French Laundry books, all that kind of stuff. And that's really what I did the last like year really of my life on the road, was do that. So I'm like, I remember talking to Danny Andriano, the bass player, and he loves food too and cooking. And I'm like, dude, if this shit doesn't work out for me, I'm going to start cooking again, and, maybe go to culinary school or something. And, and then he quit. I stopped doing it. I'm like, all right, well, I better do it then. So I moved to Minneapolis, literally knocked on, me and my girlfriend had gone to a few restaurants, and I really liked this place called Ariga. And so I knocked on the back door on a Saturday, and it just so happened that they had lost a couple people, and he's like, yeah, come back at 4,
And today.
Yes, pretty much, yeah.
Love
and,
that.
it was an amazing experience, it was like food like I'd never really seen before, and people who were really excited and passionate about what they were doing and wanting to push the edge, and, so just from there, I was just kind of hooked,
Yeah.
So, I spent a couple of years there learning from Doug, and, we had to... It was a good restaurant when it wanted to be, Sometimes I think sometimes he's still, to me, one of the best cooks I've ever met, but maybe sometimes he gave us a little too much freedom, which was good, maybe not good, like,
I could see,
you know what I mean?
I
Like,
could see that.
But, I learned a tremendous amount, and, kind of the whole ethos of like, it's really a lifestyle. It's not a job. You have to love this. You have to love it. You can't. You can't half-ass it.
No.
So, if you do,
you'll know. Everyone
exactly.
knows.
Everybody knows. So, that was really at Ariga was the true thing that really, kind of planted this seed in my brain. Let me think. Where else? Keep going from there.
Yeah,
so,
let's do it.
The restaurant. In between, I spent a little time in 2006 at the French Laundry, so I just kind of moved out here, totally broke.
Ariga, what year was that?
That was, hold on, 2003, I think.
2003. So then you worked there from 2003 to 2006.
These are very rough dates. Like probably 2003 or 2006.
Now, how'd you get the size of the French Laundry?
I called up Devin Nell.
Okay.
I just emailed, I think, and then, Devin set up a phone call with me, and then just started quizzing me on the book, and he's like, okay, you can come in. And,
all right.
So I spent about 4 or 5 months there.
So and pay your
just
penance.
commis, yeah, exactly. Like commis stuff, and then, but it really opened my eyes, because like I'd never seen a kitchen run like that before, For as great as Ariga was, it was still kind of a bit of a, what Bourdain say, like a pirate ship,
Yeah, for sure.
But this is the first time I'd ever seen structure like that, and it was just like, whoa, holy shit, So 4 months later, Doug calls me and offers me a sous chef job back at Ariga. So I took that. I do wish I would have stayed, but whatever. Things work out how they work out.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
So we did that, and then we ended up closing the restaurant shortly after that, after I got back, like maybe 6 months or something, which was, I was actually bizarrely emotional about that. It's funny how attached you get to things in restaurants.
For sure. Yeah.
From that point, I've always kind of, in my brain treated restaurants as living, breathing things, like the structures. You know what I mean? Like,
I get it.
To the point where when I write menus, it's very difficult for me unless I've been in the space or been in, you know, you want to feel it. You want to, each physical space, I think, demands something a little different than every, you know? So, after Doug had taken this, you know, it was one of those I need a job kind of jobs, you know, we've all done. This place called Mission American Kitchen, which was kind of a big lunch place for like businessmen. It was right downtown. It was the former Aquavit space when Marcus had opened Aquavit in Minneapolis, and that closed. And so I went on as Doug sous chef there and pastry chef.
That's how it always happens.
Yeah. I think we lasted a year there. And then I got an offer from another chef who I really respect in town, Stephen Brown. He was...
How did you know about him? Sort of.
So through my friend Josh Haberger, who me and Josh had worked at Ariga together.
Gotcha.
And then Josh and Stephen were buddies, and you know Josh had worked at Kraft, and you know he was one of the opening cooks at Alinea. You know, but some Minneapolis guy, you know. And me and Josh got to be really close friends pretty quick, and Stephen was opening this new restaurant at the Hotel Ivy, which was Starwood, like luxury hotel. And this was like when the Republican National Convention was coming to Minneapolis. And there were all these brand new hotels opening up, and you know, everyone they kind of went overboard on it. You know,
I can see that.
So I signed on as me and Josh. Josh was a chef de cuisine. I was a sous chef. And then Stephen was a chef, and Stephen was just a great chef. He had this restaurant called Levon that I used to love to go to. It was like some of the best. Actually, me and my roommate were talking about it last night. Restaurant Levon. It was just, you know, just kind of very progressive food. And keep in mind, we're in Minneapolis, you know what I mean? So it's not like, you know, we're not on the coast or anything, but just absolutely great meals there. And he left there and did this hotel project, and I think we were all a little in over our heads for the hotel world, you know, because it just demands a little bit different than just an independent restaurant.
I can see you.
So he, you know, none of us really lasted that long. I think I was the last one to go from there. You know, and like I said, that restaurant was great for like 3 months, you know, and then we all started either getting fired or leaving. You know, I got an offer from a chef named Tim McKee. Who Tim was kind of one of the, I told you there's like 3 chefs that I really admire. Tim was the third one. And, you know, I kind of told myself I wanted to work for all 3 of these guys. Tim was the first chef from Minneapolis to win a Beard Award, and you know he was Food and Wine Best New Chef in like '98 or something. You know? Great guy, great human being, just great. So he was. He wanted me to be the executive chef of this restaurant called SeaChange, which was at the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis. And the Guthrie was, you know, a large theater building with 3 things. It's actually one of the probably best, like outside of Broadway, it's like one of the most legitimate, you know, theater places in the country, you know. So when I agreed to do that, and like I remember the first 2 months, they were doing 3 different plays by Tony Kushner, who like, Tony Kushner is probably the most famous living playwright. He wrote like Munich and Angels in America and all this stuff. And I remember like I'd make him dinner at 11 o'clock every night. You know, it was like a legit theater place. It was cool. And we also got tickets too, like when we free tickets. So it's like I saw I got some cool plays, and you know. But that was where I kind of really started. I don't know, maybe coming to my own a little bit, and
sort of not needing anybody.
You know, and you know, the food we did there, you know, my sous chef at the time was this kid, Jim Christensen, who, you know, Jim's a fantastic cook. And, you know, he went on to be a Food and Wine Best sous chef a couple of years back. And, you know, it's just like some of the great memories, like working there. You know, where I met Jamie Malone, who, you know, we, you know, dated for years, and went on to open the Grand Cafe together. You know, just made a bunch of great relationships.
Yeah, for sure.
Know? So it was a fun time. You know, it was super fun, you know. And then from there, me and Josh decided to open up Catbirds Eat, and we, you know, we didn't have that name at the time.
What was it originally?
Well, we didn't even have like Ortolan. I think we want to call it Ortolan originally. And then the woman we hired as our publicist was like, "You can't do that. There's a restaurant in LA that just shut down called Ortolan. So like, just don't do,
don't resurrect
Susan Hosmer. Yeah, she's absolutely fantastic publicist and great woman. She's just a great person.
Yeah.
But I'm glad she talked us out of that. And Josh had left, and he was running this bar in Nashville called Patterson House. And oddly enough, my family lived in Nashville.
Okay.
So it was kind of a weird coincidence. And then the owners of the bar, I came out there, and Josh had been talking to them about this restaurant idea we had, and they were like, well, we want to get the upstairs space. It was this old house, the Patterson House was this old house, and we want to get the upstairs space. It's a hair salon. Would you guys want to do the restaurant there? So we're like, yeah, sure, So they started construction on that. Josh had moved back to Chicago briefly to open up Aviary with Grant.
Wow.
And then I went, during the 4 or 5 months, I went to Noma to kind of kill 4 or 5 months for the construction.
Exactly. Yeah.
And spent time in the test kitchen with Sam Nutter and Torsten Vilger and Lars. And I did some of the services too, but mainly on the houseboat there.
Okay.
Which is great. It was super eye-opening. It's like pretty cool to see how those guys, the whole process of that restaurant. And that was early on too, at the old building.
Who was the CC at that time?
It was Matt Orlando.
Okay,
gotcha. Yeah. Who Matt's an absolutely great guy.
Oh my God, amazing.
Yeah, and that's where I met Trevor Morin, who later came on to Capert Seat to be my sous chef at Capert Seat. Trevor's still there. He just opened up. Trevor's food's incredible.
He came and did it.
He did 12 days.
Yeah,
so
super cool.
Yeah, so Trevor just opened up a dumpling shop called Locust,
okay,
named after the band Locust. And I mean, that's the only time I've eaten at Capert Seat was when he was there. When I left, he took over for me, and that was the only meal I've ever had there, and it was just just incredible. He's just extremely talented.
Yeah. He's got that energy too.
Yeah, the
he's
energy,
like
just
there,
a little Irish guy. He's
I'm like,
it's incredible, So I'm very grateful. Me and him are still close, and but yeah, the food at Locust looks incredible. It's just like dumplings and shrimp toast and kakagori. I remember he started kakagori with anybody. It got really trendy,
Yeah.
But I remember he was doing that before, because when I moved back to Minneapolis after Capert Seat, I started doing these yakitori pop-ups. Me and Jamie did. We had him come down for one of them, and he did like this. His brother's kakagori machine. We had a great time. And then all of a sudden, maybe 6 months later, you saw it everywhere. He had gone to Japan for like a month or something. That's where he saw it. But he's absolutely incredible. Like I love that kid. He's great.
Yeah, I talked to him a little bit. Last time I talked to him was while I was on my trip, because I did this wild trip in February, and I just went every 3 days. I was in a different country.
Oh, really?
And
awesome.
he's like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah,
why don't you just stay in one place?
A little bit.
Exactly.
Learn it a little more.
Yeah. I mean, I had never been overseas, so I was like, I got 1 month.
Oh, really?
And I'm gonna hit at least the major cities for 3 days, and then whatever. But then, as I was leaving countries, they would close for COVID. Oof. So it was like I was leaving, and then I got back and it was like shut down. So,
have you ever been on a cruise before?
Yes, I have.
It's
I love it.
You loved it?
I love it.
Really?
Holy shit. Dude, I went it's funny because when I talked to Chef about it, he's like, fuck cruises.
Yes!
And there's people that say, fuck cruises. They hate them, right?
I'm one of those.
For me, I'm like, just, look, I love wrestling, right?
Yeah.
All I have to do is
like high school wrestling, or
like
professional
fucking
wrestling?
WWE.
Oh,
right?
really?
Right?
Yeah.
So
you and my dad would get along. Great.
Yeah. So I have to suspend my disbelief, right, in order to enjoy it, right?
Awesome.
So I feel like when you go on a cruise, that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
You have to be like, I'm here and I'm gonna be drunk the whole time, and that's it.
Yeah. So we went. When you get.
Why you hate him so much?
After Capert had opened, you get like me and Josh would get like a best new chef thing, and they offer these cruises for you. Like if you want to do culinary, like it's free. It's like a 10-day cruise.
Yeah,
we didn't do it. I did not choose to do it because we, if honestly the restaurant is so small, like it was like if we left, we had to shut down. You know, like if one of us was gone, we had to shut the whole place down. But after I left, and Jamie, who me and Jamie were dating, and she got the best new chef thing like a year or two later, and she got offered a cruise. So she's like, "Hey, you want to go on this cruise with me?" I'm like, "Sure," But it was it was miserable. It was some of the like you have to try real hard to make food taste that bad.
Yeah, I hear you.
The first night we started on Barcelona, and like I love Barcelona. You know, I love Spain. You know, I bought all this like fucking stinky cheese and all this stuff, you know, and I brought it in the room. And, like after a day, she's like, "You got to get rid of that shit. Like this room's way too small to have like this pata de cabra like sitting there fucking stinking up the place." She's like, "I didn't want to know what the maid thinks." But we had this great meal the first night, and I'm like, "Oh, this is going to be cool," you know.
Yeah.
And then every day, the whole cruise ended with me just eating Nathan's hot dogs by the pool because it was just like everything else is just tastes the same,
just
you know.
Garbage.
Oh yeah, but anyway,
I mean, I went on a cruise 15 years after you did, so they've gotten better.
Good,
you know, and I loved it because when I went, the dinner was like old school culinary school recipes.
Yeah, no, I could see that being cool. It's done well.
Like, it was really done well, and I was like, you know what? I'll have a molten chocolate cake for 7 days, right?
Yeah, Michel Bras, man. You know,
exactly.
That's cool. Yeah, maybe I don't know. There's so
Try
many.
it again. In
maybe
like
I will.
5 years after the
yeah.
COVID shit's gone.
Yeah,
you never know.
God, I hope it ain't 5 years.
There were also other things that were terrible, like there were comedy shows. It was
that was amazing. We had a magician show.
Yeah,
it was it was so bad. It was like, and it wasn't supposed to be bad.
Exactly,
it was just horrifying. Like he was like doing these the juggler too kept dropping shit.
Yeah, and you look around you, and everybody else is like fucking.
That part was amazing. I will say. And the only other thing is that gambling, because you can gamble
karaoke. Yeah. Like all that shit.
So there were some good parts.
Yeah, for sure. And you can drink all night long.
Yeah.
It's 24 hours. Yeah. So, you know, that has some good sides of it. I ended up smoking weed on a fucking golf course on the 3rd floor.
So you had a boat. I saw one. We docked, and I saw one boat next to us that had like a golf course thing on it. Like, why don't we have that?
So sick.
You know, ours is kind of like we were like a little rundown, maybe. You know,
that's probably why you didn't have a good time.
Yeah,
the one I went on was.
I remember we were supposed to go to Marseille, and I was stoked to go there, get, you know, like bouillabaisse or something, you know. And then there was like a dock workers strike, and they wouldn't allow the ship to dock. So we literally went to this weird place. Like I remember waking up there. We were supposed to wake up in Marseille, which is kind of a rough town too, anyway. But you know, like, and I remember we woke up in this. I don't even remember what port we were at.
Yeah,
it was just like the construction and weird, like, you know. Like industrial kind of like, what the fuck are we gonna do? The captain gets on the speaker and explains the situation, and it's like, okay, great, you know.
No, I mean, even the islands that you're supposed to go to. Yeah. I mean, we went to Barbados, and I straight up saw people doing heroin.
Oh yeah,
in the street. You know, I walked a little bit too far past the markets.
And we went to Tunisia, and it was like the same thing. It was like, but just like filth and garbage. And
you know,
you see the underbelly of things.
Oh, for sure. And somebody had a heat stroke.
Really?
Yeah. And like, you know, they had old school like stretchers, you know, no wheels.
Totally.
You know, and it's like, and you kind of take life for granted because, you know, you're over here and you see ambulances all the time, and you're like, whatever. But over there, I was like, wow, I'm like grateful that I'm from where I'm from.
Exactly.
You know, like,
the new respect for that.
Yeah.
Anyway, cruises. Yeah, where were we? Catbird seat still?
Catbird seat. Yeah.
So you know, me and Josh opened that. You know, I got back from Noma. Josh went back from Chicago. We opened that up, and you know, we were very fortunate. The first year, we had a really solid opening year. You know, like great press, and you know, Susan Hosmer, I think, was really an important part of that. And you know,
how did you feel the development of the food came along?
You know, I thought it was. I mean, we were young and cocky and thought it was the best thing ever then, you know.
For sure.
Now I look back, I'm like, it was embarrassing, you know. But, you know, we did, it was okay for the time. You know, we did it 12 days too, and in 2012, I think.
Oh, wow.
12 days, yeah. Because, you know, Dan and Kim were working at Redwood. You know, Dan and Kim were friends of ours, so they kind of told Chris about us, you know. And I remember, like, Chef came in with his wife and Von Schwing to eat at Catbird Seat.
Yeah.
And who was it working at the time? Whoever the culinary liaison was, I forget her name. I don't know. She was super cool. It was and you know, I was like nervous. I go, wow, you know. And then you know, then shortly after, he sent us an email inviting us to do 12 days. You know, which was to this day, I still think it's one of the greatest events ever put together. It's so cool,
like,
you know.
It's very cool.
Yeah. it's really neat. You know, I think who did it that year was like John Shields and who else?
That was like 2 years before my time.
Was it?
Yeah.
Right before you got there? And
it was like the day that I got there was a 12 days, and I had no clue because I had just shown up. Yeah. And I really, like, I knew about it, but I didn't put two and two together. It was happening. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So when I got there, it was like Kinch was going the next day, and Tartine was going that day.
Well, I remember because, like, Kinch came to my... I met David at a dinner I did at Blackberry Farms.
Okay.
Well, I did this dinner. Me and Josh did a dinner at Blackberry Farms. Joseph Len, who was the chef at that time, got to be buddies of ours. And, you know, he'd come to Nashville with his wife, and they'd eat at the restaurant. We'd go out for drinks. And it was his birthday. He was having dinner there. It was his birthday. He's like, in like a week or two, you know, he's like, hey, you guys should come to the farm. You know, Kinch is doing a guest chef dinner like a weekend there, and it's my birthday, and it'll be great. We're like, all right. And he's like, we'll put you guys up. So we took 3 days off, went down there. That was the first time I met David Kinch, and I'd obviously seen his food in the early days of the internet and all that stuff. You know, I was super excited, you know, and we hit it off. And you know, he's again another person I think the world of. He's great, you know. But we had a pretty epic weekend of drinking and partying and. You know, just it was super fun. Blackberry
as well. You should.
Oh yeah, Blackberry Farms is so gorgeous. You know, it's so beautiful. But
they have a great scholarship now. They put they put a lot of good talent out in the world, like just in different fields.
No, they're great. So that's how I met David, and so when we did 12 days, I invited him to the dinner, and I remember like I don't think Casa really knew who we were at that time. Not that he should have, you know, but we sold it out pretty quickly. And then, like, you know, Thomas Heller and David Kinch both asked to come. And, you know, and I remember he sent us an email. He's like, well, I don't know who you two are, but everyone wants to go to this dinner, you know. But it was,
classic,
you know, it was fun. And I am personally kind of a big fan of Chris's sense of humor. So, you know, I think he's a amazing chef and great guy, you know. It was super fun, man. It was like one of those experiences for me that has always stayed with me, and you know, it's kind of for me the benchmark of every you know guest chef dinner I've done or any event I've ever done. Like none of them come. You know, I've done some cool ones too, and none of them come close to that. Was epic. You know?
I think the level of hospitality that they teach you to give to a guest chef, like you know, into the lineup, they're like. A guest chef should need for nothing. So as soon as like we're taught, like as soon as we see the guest chef like just kind of looking around, there's like 30
what do
people.
You need?
It's like, what do you need, sir?
But we had a blast there, and you know,
that's so cool.
What else did we do? You know, we did. I'm trying to think.
At that point in time, were you like Catbird Seat is my restaurant? Will
right now for sure, dude. Like, it was you know, and then you know, I think. You know, like I'll be the first person to admit that you know shit goes to your head and you start acting like an asshole, you know.
And
you're younger, and you know, so I think you know, kind of, Josh decided he wanted to move on and do a couple other projects, and I stayed, and just by luck would have it, while this transition was happening, Trevor Morin reached out to me, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to be in Nashville." You know, he's coming from Copenhagen. He's like, "I'm going to be in Nashville. A friend of mine's there, and she's sick. You know, someone he grew up with." And he's like, "Can I stay at your house?" I'm like, "Sure." So he came in the restaurant to eat, had a blast, you know. And oddly enough, you know, I needed someone to come in, you know, as my sous chef, and I asked him. He's like, "Yeah, for sure." So him and his girlfriend moved out there, and you know, we had a great. It was a good. We spent about a year working together out there, and then I decided to move back to Minneapolis. You know, you know, me and Jamie had wanted to open a restaurant together, and you know, so I moved out there. God, I don't know what the year was. I moved back to Minneapolis, 2014 or 15. You know, and we had these huge plans to open up this fine dining place, and you know, we literally spent 2.5 years trying to get it open, and you know, I think it's just one of those things that just wasn't meant to be. You know, lease with 2 or 3 leases fall through. You know, different spaces. You know, we had this partner who was just the worst. In hindsight, it was the worst idea. You know, I found this building in the North Loop, which is kind of the hip neighborhood. You know, and the rent was like $10 a square foot. You know, it was insanely cheap, and our partner's like, why don't I buy the building? You know, so we're like, is that, you know, going to be good? And he's like, yeah. He buys a building and then hands us a lease, and the rent was $38 a square foot. It's like, how is this good for me, motherfucker? You know what I mean? Like, so it just, just shit like that. And then finally realized it just wasn't going to happen. So ultimately, me and Jamie ended up taking over this really old kind of Minneapolis institution called the Grand Cafe, and kind of redid it and turned it into this like really funky kind of Wes Anderson meets Paul Bocuse kind of brasserie, you know. And the food is, it was great. I mean, I like old school French food, and being able to do those dishes on a regular basis, super fun. Like, pike canals, and I had this idea, like, you go to Leon and like, the pike and crayfish, and we have the same in Minneapolis. I'm like, why aren't we doing this dish? So it was a lot of fun doing that food, but we going back to me being in Nashville, we ended up, me and Jamie ended up breaking up after 4 years, and
that's always hard.
Yeah, but we had to open this restaurant together, while we were breaking up, and I'm sure it was 100% my fault, but we managed to do it, and we managed to maintain a friendship, and we still do. So she took that over, and at that time, I'd met Matt Kirkley a number of years previous to that. He invited me. Actually, I think Steven Torres was doing one of his Roots of American Food, like get-togethers in Chicago, and he was doing a dinner at L2O, and he invited me down to be one of the guest chefs at this L2O dinner. It was for Jeremiah Tower.
All right.
So it's in that Tower documentary. That the scenes in Chicago or the dinner, me and Kirkley. It was like Dominique, me, Matt Kirkley, Bryce Schumann, and Michael Lascanis, who was one of my favorite pastry chefs in the world.
That's so cool.
So I met Matt there, and then a couple years later, we kind of like both love old school French cooking and punk rock, and so we just hit it off. A couple years later, they closed L2O, and he invited me to do that intro thing. So they shut L2O down to like a guest chef thing for intro. So it's like 3-month increments, So I did one of those. We got to be better friends, and he had moved out to take over Qua from Daniel. And then he decided he wanted to do the Bocuse d'Or. So he started calling me in Minneapolis and putting the bug in my ear. And I think I said no a couple times. And then finally I just realized, like,
why not?
Yeah, I mean, my former partner this restaurant's too small for two chefs,
for sure.
So I thought it was just a better move to come out here. And plus, like, I've always loved it out here, So, made it to Qua. Which was a great experience / interesting, and got to do like Matt actually asked me to be one of his assistant coaches for the Bocuse d'Or, which was super fun.
Yeah,
it's kind of amazing to like go to Lyon and like see all these chefs that you read about. It's like, oh, there's Marc Veyrat, there's Ducasse, there's all these dudes. Like, you're like, holy shit, man,
that's so cool.
Yeah, it was a cool experience. So. And then Qua, I don't know, man. It was an interesting time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was. I don't know how deep I really want to get.
No, it's fine.
It was great. I don't regret it. It got me out here, and then through.
So basically, what happened? Kirkley got the 3 stars.
So Kirkley got 3 stars on it. And
that was always the goal of that restaurant.
Yeah, and I really think, Matt, to me, Matt's one of the most technically gifted chefs I've ever seen. And his food is delicious, and he was going to get 3 stars, no matter where. He'll do it again, too. I guarantee it. He's so incredibly gifted. But, so he got the 3 stars. I decided to Bocuse, so the week the guide came out, like, he had set back, already. And then I came in and, it was obviously a 3-star, but not my 3 stars, so. And then, traditionally, I think, Michelin, when you have a new chef, it's, wipe the slate clean. And,
exactly.
So I got 2 my first year there, and then got 2 the second year. And which was great. I mean, I was kidding them. I never thought in my life
that you'd have Michelin stars,
ever, man. So it was like, fuck, man.
Because that shit follows you everywhere from now on. It's like
it's
Michelin
cool.
star,
Erik
Anderson.
Which, it's a dream of mine. Like, I like that shit, dude. I think a lot of people, I like
they dog
old
on
school
it these
French
days,
stuff
fuck
and
that.
Michelin. I do, man. Like,
I love Michelin too.
Yeah, it's just like I'm not going to be that,
Nobody. I'm not trying to say that it's right to like cook for it.
Agreed.
Cook for the stars, but just do what you do, and if
do what you do, if it follows it,
Yeah, like
exactly,
accept it and love it.
Yeah. So it was that part of it was a very cool experience for me, and there was I had some great cooks working for me at Qual that
Jordan comes up.
Jordan was there.
Yeah.
Then he left though. I honestly, Jordan helped me out so much when I got to that restaurant because Daniel wanted to do his menu for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And I needed to do R&D and get my menu together.
Yeah, for sure.
So he's like, I'll do a menu for 6 weeks, and then you can during the day work on the stuff you're doing, and then run service at night. I'm like, cool, but I mean, thank God for Jordan. He and James Lee too. He came in because he knew Daniel's food, so he kind of took the bull by the horn and dealt with Daniel, which freed me up to be able to develop my menu. Yeah. So Jordan really did a fantastic job with that.
Yeah.
And then Nate Tower, who's working there with me, he was another amazing cook, and Craig Wilmer, who was my AM sous chef, he came from Kren. He's my CDC for this new project. He's just absolutely fantastic person and just fantastic cook as well. So we had some great people there. Riley Redfern, amazing pastry chef. Mark Lou was the other pastry chef. He was fantastic.
Mark Lou, I worked with him at the
Mark's
restaurant.
great. Mark's great. He's so there was some really good people there. And front of house too. There was some great front of house talent as well. So it was a fun little restaurant at last. It had its hurdles though. There's a lot of building issues.
Oh, for sure.
You go down the basement and you're like, oh wow, we're ankle deep in water here today.
Wow.
And then obviously my favorite thing is the bums and the human shit in San Francisco.
Literally outside your
in the alley.
Yeah,
I was just like, oh my
come
God,
on, man.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
Which also I just started. When I was touring, I used to love going to San Francisco. We always had a blast. Just go and have fun and just
When you live there, it's a little different.
Yeah, and plus I think it's changed a lot too. It's just, so I kind of got disenchanted with it pretty quick. I was just like, yeah, and I love it out here. I've always loved Calistoga. Even in 2006, I would come out here and get coffee and go to a bookstore. On my days off. One of my close friends, Emmett, his aunt and uncle lived right next door to me, and they owned All Seasons Bistro and Hydro Bar and Grill right downtown here.
Yeah.
So Emmett's mother is also very close. She's kind of like my second mom, and when I moved out here, she called Alex and Gail. Alex is her brother, and said, hey, Eric's here. You should have him over at the house. So I used to come over on the weekends and hang out. They were just amazing people, super into wine, like hardcore restaurant people.
Yeah.
They're in their 70s now, but they're just super fun. I had them over here for New Year's Eve. They're just a riot.
Hell yeah.
So I spent a lot of time on the weekends. I'd leave the city and go hang out with them.
Here.
They'd let me stay in their spare room, and I just relax and decompress and drink great wine and talk with them. They're so I'm like, I want to move here. And just oddly enough, Robert Salaki called me, who was the coach for the Bocuse d'Or team. And he had known about this Four Seasons gig, and so he kind of connected me. And I spent about 4 or 5 months, talking with the GM, and the move I wanted to do. And so we're here. We are.
Here we are, awaiting that.
We're awaiting it. Yes, still in the early opening phase here, but we're awaiting it.
Now I'm curious because obviously I worked at the restaurant at Meadowood, but there was never ever a chef change. How does a chef change feel for the cooks in the kitchen from
when I was
a chef that had a 3-star to then 2-star?
I basically hired all new staff.
Okay.
It was a big...
Did you sort of have to?
Yeah.
at that point.
There was kind of a weird little shakeup.
Yeah.
Too. I think the CDC who was there at the time just assumed he was going to get the job. And I also feel like, the ownership of the restaurant led him along to think that when all the while they hired me.
Yeah.
So I mean, I felt bad for him, but it's, look, I got offered a job. I'm going to take it.
You're gonna take it, yeah.
No offense. I had no idea that, they'd never told me that he was doing tastings, right?
Yeah.
But, so it was a weird situation. A lot of the cooks, they ended up removing this person from the building for kind of throwing a temper tantrum. And called... No. I wasn't supposed to start for another 2 weeks.
Okay, got you.
And then they removed him, and they called me and they're like, "Hey, can you start today?"
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. So that's actually James Lee and Jordan came in.
Yeah.
I called both of those two up. I'm like, all right, you guys want to help me out with this? And so all three of us showed up at like 3 o'clock on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And like literally, they were like, one of the cooks was crying. I'm like, you're a grown man. Like, what are you doing? Like, you know? And he's like, I don't know how we're going to make it through service. You know, the chef, you know, whatever, plates all the food. We don't know how to. I'm like, you don't know how to plate this food? You know, like, are you fucking kidding me right now? You know, it's just like, and there's tears, and I'm just like, oh my God, dude. You know, so oddly enough, we managed to make it through service just fine, you know. So ultimately, you know, all those guys, I just hired pretty much all new staff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of didn't want, and there were some really solid cooks there too, but I wanted my own thing, or you know what I mean? Like I didn't want the, well, we used to do it like this kind of, you know.
I fucking hate that.
Yeah.
You know?
So yeah, ultimately it ended up being all my own staff. So
got you.
Mm-hmm.
And then how many months in before you had that? You know, before you had your whole kitchen,
probably like
you and
3 or 4, maybe 4.
Gotcha.
Yeah. God, who was the first? You know, and again, like, you know, Jordan was very helpful. He's like, hey, this is my buddy. You know, he's looking for work, or I know this person who knows this person. You know, and it just, you know, and actually Nate, who I don't know if you know Nate, he was at Bird Dog and he was at Petite Crane, and he was a Minneapolis kid, and he wanted to work for me back in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And then turned out I moved out here, so we got to work together out here. And you know, Nate ended up being my CDC there.
That's always cool.
So yeah, it was great. You know, it was an interesting.
So
interesting time.
Did you decide to leave just because you were over it, sort of over living in the city? You know,
the city, and also just the ownership of the restaurant. I say was really just not. You know,
not what you wanted to be a part of.
Exactly. Yeah, it was just not a vibe that I just didn't want to be associated with it. And, you know, there's definitely a lot of smoke and mirrors with how certain people would portray themselves via social media, and the reality of the situation was something completely different.
That is some horse shit.
It is horse shit.
When
you know,
when you use social media as a tool to show your best side.
Yeah, and then like it's the exact opposite. And everybody knows it.
Yeah,
you know, like so. Again, I'm. Whatever, man, do what you got to do. That's fine. But I got to a point where it's just, you know, I couldn't deal with it. You know? So that's when I started looking at this. And plus, like, I love it here. Like, being out here physically, like, makes me feel good. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it's great, you know?
Yeah, it's a great space.
Walk all the time, you know, shoot, I've been like on 3 to 5 mile walks like every day.
Yeah.
You know, just like, it's so peaceful and calming, you know? Like, and this is kind of the first country-ish place I've always lived in urban environments, you know, like Nashville and Chicago, and, you know, always lived, wherever I moved, I always lived in the city. So this is the first kind of thing for me doing this, and I absolutely love it, you know. I should convince one of my good buddies, Landon, to move out here too.
All right.
So, you know, it's good to have some old friends here and meet new people, and
for sure.
It's a cool town.
What kind of if I can ask, what kind of food are we talking here? Is it going to be more fine dining, or do you think?
That's a good question. I mean, I think I lean towards that side more for me because it's technically challenging.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
And it engages me on a day-to-day basis, you know?
I can see that.
And I would say what I cook and what I like to eat are generally two different things as well, you know?
I think that's for all of us, man.
You know, so it's like, but it's weird. You meet people who aren't in the restaurant business. They think like you eat like that every day, or something. It's like, no way, man.
No, you don't. No.
Like, dude, I'd rather have.
You're like I'm dehydrated and I eat fast food.
Yeah,
like,
totally. Yeah, exactly, man.
Like
if you went in my freezer, there's just frozen pizzas. And,
you know, exactly.
Like,
frozen dumplings.
Yeah,
Trader
totally.
Joe's.
Totally.
Amazing.
I love frozen dumplings too.
Dude, the ones from Trader Joe's.
Really? I've had them a couple times.
Trader Joe's has the best, like, ready to eat.
Have you had their cookie butter?
No.
Dude, it's...
What?
You know, like the speculoos? They're like the cookies you get on Delta's.
Yeah.
Like, they do a cookie butter like that. It's like the texture of peanut butter, but it's fucking like speculoos cookies.
What?
It's insane. Dude, you have to... Next time you go to Trader Joe's, get their cookie butter. It's going to blow your mind.
All right.
I went on a couple months where I was like, holy cow, dude. Like, this shit's amazing, you know? And then you look at it and you're like, wow, this is really bad. Really bad for you. Yeah, totally. But.
So, during pandemic, what have you been up to? Just kind of.
Well, yeah, I mean, just developing the menu here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess I should, obviously, it goes without saying that, a restaurant should really kind of be an expression of the local surrounding,
Exactly.
So, I think I like to think at this point we've evolved far enough to where that should be a given. Like I just hate like farm to table, like someone who uses that as a platform. It's like, fuck off, It's like it should be at this point you're a responsible human being.
Yeah,
and that's how you do things.
That's how you do things.
Yeah.
When I first when I went to stage at the restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, chef, I came from this place. It's a farm to table restaurant, and he's like, all restaurants are farm to table.
Yeah,
like,
there's a farm in there
so
somewhere.
Stupid. I was like, I'm so sorry.
All right, duly noted.
Exactly.
So I have been just really like a lot of reading, a lot of menu development. Like I said, we have a small test kitchen we've been working on when we can. Writing menus, rewriting menus. Me and Craig get together every day and kind of go over stuff. And it's difficult because trying to figure out what season we're going to be opening in and changing it.
You're just going to have to
exactly.
have 4 menus ready.
Yeah, pretty much.
Actually, we're in California, 6 menus.
Yeah, 6 exactly.
One for the month of April.
Yeah. So it's a lot of that and learning. I've never really done anything like this with a company of this size, so. There's a lot of positive stuff to learn, and just kind of understanding how the company works.
Yeah, is there a build out, or do you kind of know what the space is going to look like?
It's really cool.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so it's cool, man. I think I'm super happy. I'm really just excited to get back in working and cooking on a day-to-day. It's been a year and a half since I've actually ran a kitchen.
Yeah.
I've done a few dinners and stuff, but nothing too crazy, And I also been kind of trying to learn a little more about wine, obviously, because it's look where we're at.
While you're here,
yeah. There's some great winemakers. My buddy Kate and Modi is. I've learned a lot from him. He's, he
really, comes in all the time.
Yeah, Kate. Yeah. He's such a great person, and is just like I didn't really like understand. I mean, obviously, know what wine is, but like. When he walked me through his vineyard and just hearing him talk about it and the way he talk, it's kind of just a light went off in my head. I'm like, holy shit, like that's fucking how it shit should be. Yeah, totally, man. So, I just think he's super talented, and I dig what he does, and they're just trying to like immerse myself in this place, and learn more about it, and go on a lot of walks, and it's just it's pretty much it. Just counting down the days, hopefully, for this shit to wind down.
I hear you. Is there any chefs right now in the world that you're like, man, any new people come up and coming that you're like, I gotta go to the restaurant once this shit ends?
Man,
I just ate up at the Harbor House.
I would love to check that out. Yeah,
god damn, it was
really good. Yeah,
delicious.
Yeah.
I mean, he's sitting there being like, yeah, there's I can't just order produce, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You gotta just figure it out.
I don't know, to be honest. Like, I mean, there's people I absolutely love Paul Liebrandt, and I love his work, and Josh, actually my old business partner at Bastion in Nashville, is doing cool stuff, and Trevor is too. I'd love to see what Baxter, who's currently the chef at Catbird Seat. His food looks fantastic. Young. I guess for me, it's like let's see what's open when the smoke clears. You know what I mean? Like it's like shit. But I just can't. I it's weird. I love traveling, but it's like I just want to go somewhere so bad right now. Probably because we can't. I just keep I want to go back to Paris.
Yeah. Well, everybody seems to be going to Hawaii.
Yeah,
the locals are getting pissed off.
Yeah,
like,
it's like supposed to be the safest right now for
that's
the best
that's what they said.
Maintained or controlled or something.
Napa was for a while.
Yeah,
during the whole thing, it was like, our numbers are low, but it's like, what do people from San Francisco do?
They come here.
Here.
So when I got back from Montreal here, it was like, I think there was under 100 confirmed cases.
Yeah.
And then it just kept going up and up and up. But I have high hopes, and I also really think that when this, I remember actually me and Josh were talking a few weeks ago, and how, he brought up this one, he read this article how the Spanish flu in 1918, roaring 20s were kind of a direct result of that.
Yeah.
You know, when people could get out, they were like, shit, we're going to go party and just go crazy, you know? So I have kind of feeling it's going to be like that.
For sure.
I think restaurants and nightclubs and bars are going to boom.
They're going to boom,
again.
yeah. Whoever's alive out there.
100%.
There's going to be a baby boom.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think there is already one happening this year because everybody's inside.
Yeah, there's
see.
a total baby boom inside here. Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you, Chef.
Yeah,
for
do you feel
doing
like you
this.
got enough?
Hell yeah,
awesome.
man. This
Cool.
is awesome.
Cool.
You're gonna, you know, when I do this, it's like I always get a lot of feedback from everybody who listens,
Cool.
and they're like, "I was inspired by this that
Yeah.
person said," and like to hear that, you know, you're a high school dropout and
Yeah.
here you are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't recommend that for everybody.
I mean, you know, but at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it's like school's not for everybody.
No,
And-
I agree.
And while you're trying to find yourself, like, and I meant to ask you, how did your parents take that? Were they like cool, or were
not necessarily? You know, like, I think I know they weren't happy with it,
yeah?
but they knew that
You weren't
whatever they said wasn't going to change. You know what I mean? Because I was just too much in my own head. You know.
Yeah.
You know, so they just kind of tried to be supportive as much as they could. You know, yeah. There's really.
I think sometimes people wish they had the balls to do that,
Yeah.
and they don't.
It was.
And-
there was nothing. I'm more like. I have to like something. You know, I think learning should be more geared towards this, you know, like where it's like, find out what each kid is kind of naturally. Obviously, yes, you got to know to read, you got to know to write, you know.
Yeah.
But like, let's geared learning more towards a little more individual, I guess, you know. And so, you know, who knows, you know. But I just found that it just wasn't for me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then when I, you know, found something I liked, I feel like you can excel at it. You know,
Yeah, for sure.
It's engaging, and I want to do it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure your parents were proud after the opening all these.
Well, the weird thing is, my mom passed away in 2001.
Okay.
So I was still working in music at that point.
All
So,
right.
yeah, but hopefully she knows what's going on.
Oh, she definitely does, man.
Yeah.
She definitely does. All right, Chef. Well,
Cool.
thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, man. I
Yeah,
really
man.
appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
What's your setup? Can I take a look here?
Yeah, for sure.
Can I take a look here?
Yeah, for sure.
Can I take a look here?
Yeah, for sure.
Can I take a look here?
Yeah, for sure.
Can I take a look here?
Yeah, for sure.
Can I take a look here?
Yeah, for sure.
Can I take a look here?
Yeah.